Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is Peter Lavelle, co-founder of The Gaggle, host also of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, yesterday was a very strange day because at some point during the day, the United States announced, as expected, a raft of sanctions against Russia. The familiar litany of complaints was issued by the United States. There was the solar winds hack, generally Russian cyber hacks, interference in the 2020 election. There was some mention also about Crimea and Russia's involvement in the occupation of Crimea. And there was a parenthetical mention of Afghanistan, and not in order to impose sanctions on the supposed Russian officials who engage in paying bounties to the Taliban for killing U.S. servicemen. It was just a mention of saying, well, that's a very sensitive matter, and we will address this diplomatically and in confidence with the Russian authorities. So this was a very strangely demure statement from the ever belligerent United States, which is always ready to accuse Russia of anything. The New York Times, which had earlier that day promised that there will be tough sanctions against Russia over the bounties, had to do a hasty retreat and said, well, the reason why there were no sanctions imposed for the bounties is that it turns out that the intelligence only had low to medium confidence in the truth of the claims about the bounties. Now, low to medium confidence is nothing. I mean, I have low to medium confidence that it's going to be sunny today since it's raining outside. So it's just it's a nonsensical idea. But what's interesting about this is that the media have been running with this story. The New York Times in particular has been running the story. And that's why earlier that day it predicted, well, nice, Biden would be doing something that Trump did not do. Trump had pointedly not punished the Russians over the bounties, but Biden, he's no Kremlin puppet. He's going to hit the Russians. So Times has to backtrack and then publish subsequently another story saying, well, yeah, but the problem is intelligence is always a little doubtful. You can never be certain of it. It's not like going into a courtroom with incontrovertible evidence, which may well be true. In which case, why are you constantly bullshitting people with apparently intelligence, whether it's intelligence about the weapons of mass destruction or intelligence about Libya or
weapons attacks?
Yeah, and of course Russiagate, all of that stuff. Now, given all that, how do the media respond? They're still running with completely uncorroborated allegations about solar wind or about Russian interference in the 2020 election. So, okay, well, maybe we got the Afghan story wrong. Maybe it's not completely incontrovertible, but let's go with solar winds. So it looks like, as always, that the media have learned nothing and forgotten nothing. Peter.
Yeah, Jen Psaki, even with low to medium probability, the Russians still have to explain themselves.
Right. Yes, exactly. They still have to. Yes.
No, what it is it shows the inability to drop this hoax, okay? And it's bled into so many different areas, and they look like complete buffoons every step of the way. There's never been one allegation been proven true through all of this. Nothing, not one thing.
Right.
I mean, Hillary Clinton had more to do with the Russians than the Trump people ever did.
Right. Yes.
Okay. I mean, we have a British spy that did more meddling in the American election than any other single person.
Right. And when you talk about a British spy, you're also talking about the British government, because nobody ever retires from the intelligence services. That's just a well-known fact. So.
Yeah, and then why did the British government shake in their boots when Trump threatened to release the intelligence on their involvement in the election? It never was released. Okay, they never released it, but he made it clear
Yes.
I mean, and he
Yeah,
not only did he make it clear, his actions showed it. The cold relationship the Trump administration had with the UK, because they knew, the administration knew the level of meddling that was involved.
right.
So I mean, that's what I mean. They just keep tying themselves into pretzels, don't they? I mean, and you know, it's kind of interesting. One of the reasons why, well, first of all, they have no sense of pride. They'll never admit that they're wrong. Okay, that's the first thing. That's a given. But the second, George, and we're going to cover it, September 11th, 2021, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Now, how many stories and how many videos are we going to do of all of the reasons the deep state or the permanent bureaucracy and their media friends, how many reasons will they give us to stay and not get out, okay? Because this transcends the whole Trump phenomenon, okay? It's not about Biden. It's about the grift called Afghanistan, which is a symbol of the foreign policy grift in general here.
Exactly.
Once you start kicking back,
but that's the thing. I mean, it's not just Afghanistan. I mean, the U.S. principle is that wherever there are military forces anywhere in the world, they can never be withdrawn. So it's Afghanistan, Syria. I mean, we found out under Trump that you cannot even withdraw forces from Germany. I mean, even that is destabilizing. I mean, 75 years after World War II, you still cannot withdraw forces from Germany. So that is the unalterable axiom of the what was that phrase of Alexander Vindman? The interagency consensus. That's it. So you cannot withdraw. And if you talk about it withdrawing, then you're destabilizing and a thorough danger to world peace. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. And we see how contradictory everything is over the last 7 days. For example, the Biden administration is going to go to the wall with unwavering support of Ukraine's sovereignty. Then after the call with Putin, all of a sudden the Black Sea exercises were stopped. Okay. And then maybe we should have a chat in the nearest future. Okay. And then the other side, the other shoe drops, more sanctions here. See, from where I am, it looks like you're dealing with a group of lunatics. And then the media is caught being stenographers for power. It's been proven to them, and they have nothing to say except for it's just deeper than you think. It's there. Okay, we haven't been able to dot the I's and cross the T's, but it's there. And this is a psychotic state. Okay, it's a paranoid state of mind too, because people are out to get me. That's what the media is saying.
Well, that's the interesting thing. I mean, is that the media, which use the word conspiracy theory more prolifically than anyone else, are always accusing these Trump people of conspiracy theories, and Trump himself of conspiracy theories, a conspiracy theory this, conspiracy theory that. No one is more prone to conspiracy theories than the mainstream media. I mean, they had the Russiagate. That's a vast conspiracy, a lunatic conspiracy theory, that the idea that the Russian government can alter the election results because they are so fiendishly clever, so understand the minutiae of US political campaigns, that they can intervene decisively in the right states in order to secure a victory for Donald Trump. I mean, if the Russia can do that, then let's get rid of all the political consultants and just go directly to the Kremlin. Please tell us how to win an election.
Well, I mean, there's an interesting prospect now. If the Democrats get their way and federalizing the election, then an outside power could. See, everybody has to understand is that why is in most countries, the American version of the CIA and the FBI are basically the same organization. They may be called something different, but they're under the same umbrella. And it was Dwight D. Eisenhower, or I think it was even Harry Truman, with the CIA, is that, you stay away from the FBI, because he knew that if you fuse too much power into one organization, that they will be a threat, okay, to the established illegal elected power. And so, and the same theory applies here. Once they federalize everything, then a malign actor domestically or abroad, has a much better chance of manipulation. The 2016 election was so decentralized because that's the nature of the system here. I mean, the system is arcane. It's prone to fraud. Instead of looking at the issues of fraud, okay, which I think the Georgia law certainly did. But they want to look for other ways to make it more centralized, more uniform, and then it just takes some people from Silicon Valley or some Macedonian teenagers to write an algorithm, and then you can start switching votes for all the way from Maine to California to Alaska to Hawaii. I mean, this is the danger that's being presented, and I've made this argument all of the time: is that the country is so decentralized on these issues that it's impossible for one outside or even a group of outside actors to make any meaningful impact whatsoever without being caught.
No, I think that was right, and of course that's why there was never even the slightest evidence that there was any significant Russian interference beyond various trolls on the internet, people taking out Facebook ads, and everybody does this. I mean, it's just that's the nature of the beast. But there was never any evidence that any of that was directed by the Russian government, and that really was always the key. Which is, you can have all sorts of people taking out Facebook ads, even if they're Russian. What has that got to do with the Russian government?
But nobody's done this, okay? And I know they're afraid of doing it. Let's look at the ads. Let's go back to 2016. Let's look at all of the ads purchased by Russia-related organization or something like that, okay? So, let's show that number. Now let's use also, give me the number for Saudi Arabia, for Israel, for Turkey, for China, for Iran,
but that's
even North Korea. I bet you the Russians would be the smallest.
But that's exactly the point. So whenever the media would report, well, the Trump campaign had 344 interactions with Russians in the 2016 campaign, or whatever the number is, and you say, well, what does that number mean to me? How many interactions are normal in a political campaign? How many interactions did the Trump campaign have with Englishmen? How many did they have with Germans or with Koreans or with the Iranians? I mean, it's just a meaningless number, but they always just simply tell you this number, which in isolation is completely meaningless. So you don't know, is 300 a lot or is it a little? I mean, you have to compare it with others. But that's how you continue with this conspiracy theory. And that's, as you said, when you get to Afghanistan and they suddenly say, well, low to medium confidence. And let's remember, if this wasn't just simply a media story, we got this one wrong. This was uttered many, many times by Biden himself during the campaign, Obama during the campaign, Susan Rice during the campaign, Adam Schiff during the campaign, Tammy Duckworth during the campaign. This was a Democratic Party talking point. So the media actually were fueling basically the Democratic Party. And of course, who in turn was fueling the media? These anonymous intelligence officials, because they were the ones who told this story. They're all anonymous. Well, we saw this story, this is.
Yeah, and what it was is that it was most likely, it was a Afghan government official, police or intelligence doing interrogations of prisoners, and then that's then in the story. That sounds like a good story, and then it went up the food chain. Okay, I mean that's most likely the origin of it, because what we're going to get. What we've been getting, we're getting now, and we will get for the next few months, and we're going to get these outrageous stories about why we have to stay in Afghanistan. And Russia's one of their favorite ones, okay? They're going to invent another story, okay? It definitely will. And it will be unrelenting. So, right. I mean, and because this is a gift that keeps on giving as far as they're concerned, because just like we said, in the number of interactions, 344, George and I are making up the numbers here, but but it was 8,000 with Saudi Arabia. Now don't look over there. Right. It's not important.
Right. No, that's exactly right. But of course, the business about the Russian bounties never really made very much sense, because from the Russian point of view, which is, why would Russia want to kill Americans, leading the Americans then to decide to stay in Afghanistan when that really isn't Russia's policy? Then you'd have to say, well, Russia's policy is to keep America in Afghanistan. Well, which means what? Russia is now on the same side as the U.S. national security state, which also wants to keep Americans there. That makes absolutely no sense. I mean, if Russia is your enemy, then you say it pursuing this very same goals you're pursuing, keeping Americans in Afghanistan. Well, that's not what Russia wants. Russia's position clear. They want the Americans gone. So it never made any sense at all. And even all the details, remember the details like they wired money to these Islamic fighters. Now, an intelligence service, the one thing it never does is wire money and leave a record. And they know the extent to which the United States monitors all global financial transactions. Yeah, that's nice. Oh, let's look at a Russian government, a record of Russian government wiring money to jihadis. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
Yeah. The Russian intelligence service has a PO box somewhere, George.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing that's really interesting is that at least when Trump was president, there was a end date. It was May 1st. So why would the Taliban want that deadline to be disturbed? And they didn't, as far as we know. That even the intelligence community has reported no Americans have been killed in enemy action. Right. The Taliban kept their word. Okay, right. So why would they mess up something that they agreed to? Now, another thing is it's brought up, and it's used as a cudgel. The Russians have contact with the Taliban. Yeah, yes, they do. Yes, they do have contact with the Taliban, because the Taliban is going to end up running the place eventually, and Russia wants to have an interlocutor to have be able to communicate, and that makes perfect sense. See, that's a precautionary measure, because the corrupt government that's been propped up in Kabul by the United States for 2 decades it's a straw man. It's going to fade away very, very quickly. They're using the SWIFT numbers, getting all that money that's been funneled to them for 2 decades. Make sure it's in Dubai when the day comes, when the helicopters are on the roof and they're all flown out, because that's the inevitability. That is the accomplishment of 2 decades and trillions of dollars. Okay.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, one remembers, you remember how agitated the United States was during the 1980s about the Soviet presence in Afghanistan. That lasted 8 years, or maybe 9 years. So this has already been more than twice as long as the Soviet presence. But so we're going back to this issue of the media. Now, the media, learned nothing from the Iraq weapons of mass destruction caper. They made a promise. Well, we promise that we'll never do this again. And the New York Times fired that woman, that journalist. I forget her name. The one who was one of the leaders of the weapons of mass destruction stories. So they fired us. Oh, that's it. We're not going to have any more of this reporters being in bed with government officials. And of course, in no time at all, we were back to the same thing. It was Libya. Gaddafi is on the brink of committing genocide in what's the name of that? The town.
And Gaddafi's pumping his soldiers with Viagra.
Yeah, that's right. So that's that story. And so we're on, and then of course, the granddaddy of all the stories. Let's go with Russia gave. So in other words, over and over again, the media does this, and they promise, oh well, we're not going to do this anymore. We're definitely going to be very skeptical about what our sources tell us. No, you're not going to get skeptical, because the sources are telling you what you want to hear. So that was so therefore, yeah, we want to hear this. We want to hear what bad guys the Russians are. Yeah, so some say, yeah, Russia's involved. They're trying to kill American soldiers. Oh, Russians are killing Americans.
And there's
wrong with it.
And there is
a terrible person.
There is
Benghazi. I was talking about the genocide in Benghazi.
Yeah, there is ample evidence of the fake chemical attacks in Syria. It's been
That's exactly right.
completely
That's a very good point.
debunked,
Yeah.
completely corroborated,
Mhm.
repeatedly. And no, it'll never happen again. I mean, my goodness, but that's what they trade in. They trade in propaganda. That's their purpose.
Right.
That is their purpose, is to trade in propaganda, not to tell us the truth. They are the propagandists for empire. Full stop. It's as simple as that. And it's an easy gig because it's just all fed to you. Maybe you can write a little bit better than the next guy, but you just put it in your prose and then you throw it out there and you're paid well. I mean, it's an amazing grift.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Because they want to hear a particular story, and when they don't want to hear a story, they kill the story. So we had the Hunter Biden laptop, which, other than the New York Post, the mainstream media did not touch. That was a newsworthy story, but instead they ran with the phony baloney claims that this was Russian disinformation. They ran with it. They pretended to take it seriously. There's not the slightest evidence of it. Just because 50 former intelligence officials said, well, it has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Well, hallmarks of Russian disinformation. what kind of evidence is that? So they pretended to believe that this was Russian disinformation. So we go through this over and over again. Okay, forget about Afghanistan. Maybe it's low to medium. Okay, what's the next allegation?
It's almost kind of akin. Is it so, Peter Lavelle? Is it true that you're a host at RT? Is it true that you host a program called Cossack? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, some people make that claim.
Right.
Maybe it's it's an imposter. I don't know. Right. Maybe this is a CIA's operation here, PsyCop. Okay. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. RT. I don't know what you're talking about. That's the same level of nonsense.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. One amusing sidebar we can mention is that amidst the sanctions imposed yesterday is sanctions against Constantine Kilimnik. Constantine Kilimnik is a kind of hardy perennial of Russiagate. He's sort of been around in 2016. He was basically Paul Manafort's interpreter in Ukraine, since Manafort was active in Ukraine, but he spoke neither Russian nor Ukrainian, so he used Kilimnik. And this person, who had actually before had worked for 10 years in John McCain's International Republican Institute, however, again, US intelligence put it about that he was really working for Russian intelligence. Again, no evidence for any of this. So the Treasury, which is now imposing sanctions against Kilimnik, said, well, he passed on sensitive polling data to the Russian intelligence. We'll never know, what exactly is sensitive polling data, and why would the Russian intelligence be particularly interested in sensitive polling data? But nonetheless, it's like it goes on. I mean, the Senate Intelligence Committee, which published that 10-volume or whatever 20-volume study of Russian interference in the 2016 election, had an enormous amount about Kilimnik, but none of which was any more than simply the regurgitation of the same accusations about him. But again, it just shows you what happens when intelligence just simply is allowed to have free flow, and you can just go on saying this. Constantine Kilimnik will be will be in American political life for another 10 years, until one day we'll find out, oh, he's no longer alive. But it's always there as a kind of shadowy presence.
Yeah, how many times was he mentioned on Rachel Maddow's show?
Exactly.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And the way they frame it all the time, he was basically a freelancer, okay, and he would talk to anybody, and he was a hired gun, all right, and for the most part, he was a translator more than anything else.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was Manafort's interpreter. I think that was his role, for Manafort. But they say something like, well, Kilimnik plotted with Yanukovych to bring Yanukovych back to power. what the hell? I mean, who is he to plot anything with Yanukovych? Yanukovych coming back to power? I mean, what kind of nonsense is that? And in any case, what the hell business is it of the U.S. government with Yanukovych? But it's the sort of nonsense that you get. He plotted with Yanukovych for him to come back to power.
Yeah, I mean, a kind of another sidebar here that I think is important because we've mentioned it before is all of the bluster and rhetoric that we had for 2 weeks building up to what was going on in Ukraine. And as I predicted, they took a step back, took a breath, as we gladly are happy that they did. But see, what this does is that who's watching all of this? Beijing is watching very carefully. So the Americans, they get all up in a fevered pitch, and they get the tanks rolling and they're putting down ultimata and all of this. And then all of a sudden, oh, never mind. See, the United States looks very erratic and out of control. And just the perception that is the case makes the entire international system unsafe, because there are going to be actors in Moscow, in Beijing, other places that are going to not really particularly understand what the U.S. policy is, and people can miscalculate because what we're getting so many mixed signals all of the time. And it's really quite scary. And it's scary, folks, because you could be on the receiving end, okay? And that is dangerous.
No, I think that's right. I think it's you have Biden coming out yesterday when he talked about these sanctions, talking about good relations with Russia, good, stable, predictable relations with Russia. He and Putin had a very good, productive, respectful conversation, and so you have a respectful and then you impose sanctions 2 days later. And then, well, we don't want escalation. Well, don't escalate then. But don't sort of say, say you launch these sanctions and then say, well, but we don't want you to retaliate. Yeah, they're going to retaliate. I mean, we're working on organizing a summit, but of course, a lot of it is a kind of deception, because the United States does a lot of that, which is things are actually very bad, things are very dangerous, but it assures the public everything's under control, don't worry about a thing. I mean, the example I cite is, for instance, before the bombing of Yugoslavia, when Clinton and Albright assured the American public that Russia's on board. I mean, they're not going to take part in the bombing, but don't worry, Russia's on board. Russia was furious. Yeah. It led to the downfall of Yeltsin, then the whole of that pro-Western policy.
Remember Primakov? Yeah. Primakov's plane.
Primakov's plane, exactly. So, but again, they're misleading the public. So, oh yes, well, they're fine. The Russians are fine. We're working on organizing the summit. This a day after the Russians said no plans for any summit. But you constantly misleading the public, and the media are happily going along with it as if the Russians, you can just kick the Russians, but as long as you dangle a summit in front of them, they'll say, oh, thank you, master. We're ready for a summit.
Do we have a new category now in unretaliatory sanctions? Yes. Well, we're going to sanction you, but don't retaliate.
Yes.
What? That's what it's getting down to. We're going to do something, but you shouldn't do anything in return. Right. Okay? Right. Because, we might have a summit. You might have to bring your own chair, but we're going to have a summit. Okay? And if we decide we're going to have a summit, you're going to be there. Okay? Right. This is like dealing with someone that's not playing with a full deck here. I mean, this is crazy.
Right. No, that's right. I think it's clear from the media. Remember, after Biden delivered his insipid little speech, the first media question, oh, Mr. President, did Putin indicate to you that he's going to change his behavior? He changes behavior. You go to the headmaster's office and say, I promise that I will pay attention and not be disrespectful to teachers anymore. Okay, well, you can go now. I mean, who the hell are you talking about? Change his behavior? Well, what kind of nonsense is that?
Well, again, when you look at the broader picture, where are American troops They're on Russia's border. I mean, it's not like, Russia moved borders to get near to NATO. Okay, it was NATO moving, ever so quickly to Russia's borders, but Russia shouldn't react to it. There's nothing going on right here.
Right.
I mean, that is just. You just have no words for it. It's a military alliance.
Right.
Okay.
But I always love that the changes behavior. Not Russia will rethink its interests or anything like that. Changes behavior. They're just bad boys. I mean, they're just behaving mischievously because they're annoying teacher. That's all. They have no other.
Well, but that goes back to
teacher.
I think that we talked about it, that article that Victoria Newland wrote. It's just that, Russia's just a bad actor. It has no interest. It's just doing this intentionally.
That's right.
Okay, which, someone like that should never be allowed near foreign policy, because that's not how it works. Right. That is such a unreasoned way of thinking about foreign policy. It's dangerous.
Right. That's right. And so we come back full circle. Here we are. We just said, all the stuff we told you about, that Russia is murdering, paying to have our servicemen murdered. It turns out there was, low order of probability that any of that was true. How about an apology to Trump, first of all? Remember, I mean, this was Biden and Obama and the Democrats accusing Trump of doing nothing. He's allowing Putin to murder our men and women, and he's doing nothing about it. So how about an apology to Trump, who didn't find the intelligence very compelling, which is why he never brought the subject up with Putin. Yeah, well, that's why he didn't find the intelligence compelling.
I think that's a low probability that there's going to be an apology there, George.
I think so too. For some reason, I agree with you. Yeah. All right, Peter. Thank you. And remember, look us up on Rumble. And we will, of course, maintain our laser-like focus on the doings. Oh, that's it. Bye-bye. A laser-like focus on the doings of the Biden administration. And if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.